So DWP are asking for everybody's bank statements if you're on any type of benefit. They're even asking you what you spend your money on, and they're even stopping people's benefit or suspending it if they don't comply. But guess what? Under universal credit law, you don't have to. You do have a right to privacy. And if DWP is asking for your entire spending history, which they are when they say a non-redacted bank statement, this 6-page letter here that I'm going to be giving you free on this occasion is going to show you how to challenge this in a calm, professional and lawful way. Now, this is a disclaimer. This is not legal advice. If you want to take legal advice before you send them this, then you can do so. But you will see within the letter that it's very comprehensive, and it also states their own policies and a whole load of other rules as well, including them applying current bills that are not in fact acts or lawful at this moment in time. So before I get into the nitty gritty, I'm going to be going through a couple of the really concerning comments that you lovely people have given me, which is clearly showing just how awful this whole process is. But we know that the Department of Work and Pensions believes that it is a law unto itself and in lots of cases considers itself above the law. But that is just not, that is just not legal. So let's look at this first one here. Hi, I've asked the DWP why I'm under a case review, and 2, how do I get a recording of the telephone conversation I had with an agent asking me what I had spent a certain amount of money on. I've been given the link for the conversation. They've completely ignored the case review reason. Soon to see my MP, and I encourage you to do that. In the free letter that I'm going to be giving you today is going to be talking as well about the case review, and I will go through it in a little bit. Shez says, they did it to me. They suspended my money till I gave them 3 months bank statements. Asked Citizens Advice about this, and they said, well, they're the government, they can do what they want. It's true, and you better believe it, they do. Well, they do what they want, and they do believe that they can get away with it because most people don't know how to challenge them, or they have people over a barrel if you are reliant on the benefits. The first thing I'm going to say is try not to be reliant on benefits because if you are, then they do have that option to cut your money off. I'm going to leave links down below of various things that I believe would be useful for certain people, from borderless banking, which is governed by EU law and not UK law, and other things as well. Here's another concerning comment from Carly. I'm going to write to the DWP, but I've asked 2 different advisors why I'm being reviewed. Both have said everyone is being reviewed. I will let you know their response if I get one from my letter. I continue to comply, but I am documenting everything they have done and sending it to them. I have a question. If I end up doing a phone review, which I imagine I will, can I request to see what notes were taken, what was written during the phone call? I'd like to make sure they are writing what I actually say, as in my assessment to be off work, they didn't write anything I said and twisted everything else. Thanks for doing your videos. And thank you for subscribing. In actual fact, if you're watching this video, do make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the notifications bell as well, so you know when I have released a video. So surprise, surprise, DWP not keeping accurate records of phone conversations or anything else that actually puts them at a disadvantage. I can state 100% this is their tactic after having to dealing with them legally myself. They have the most dishonest, in my opinion, legal team who love to miscontextualize and falsify quite a lot of facts. That is why I recommend anybody having anything to do with DWP gets something like this. It is much better to have an independent recording device than your phone. You can get this on Amazon. I'll leave the link down below. It's like 12 quid or something like that. You can have little cards that you can pop in and out and put into your computer. It's charged with a little cord, USB charging, and quite frankly, data never lies. So even if you ask sometimes for a recording, what will come back is something that has been redacted, and anything, as I've said, that would put them at a disadvantage will be removed. Is that legal? No, but unless you've actually got the real version, there's not an awful lot you're going to do. So make sure you record all communications with the Department of Work and Pensions in any way whatsoever. Mostly audio. Can you use it in court? Yes, you can. If you then take this and transcribe it with Google Docs, which is free. So here in the letter, which is a complaint letter for disproportionate request for bank statements, which is available to everybody watching this video and who is subscribed to my YouTube channel. Now, I want to be very clear. This is my intellectual property. I've taken a lot of time, 6 pages long, putting this together. It is not legal advice, but it does correspond and point to DWP's policies, which of course I know very well from being a former civil servant working in various departments, which you all seem to have a problem with right now because they seem to be acting in a very odd way. And I agree with you. I think it's completely, I think it's entirely unreasonable. I think it's an invasion on privacy. And in this country, we have a law that is everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So to put everybody under an automatic case review is very concerning. So first of all, let's look at Regulation 111 of the Universal Credit Regulations Act of 2013. So the Secretary of State may require a claimant of state benefits to provide certain documents, okay? Bank statements can be those documents, certificates, information and evidence that are relevant to their claim and their award. Now I'm going to break this down and explain it. The letter is quite concise, so that's why obviously it's helpful if you watch the video or watch his YouTube as well. So this means that DWP can verify income, capital and household composition, okay? Income, capital and household composition. So how many people are living in the house and what is the income that is coming into that household. However, that regulation does not authorize DWP to demand or examine relevant private data or hold vulnerable people, in particular disabled people, at ransom for not providing private data, such as details of where a person shops, their hobbies, charitable giving, religious giving, medical purchases, or other personal expenditure where these are unrelated to entitlement. So if you are being questioned, why did you spend £3.84 at this shop, which some of you have stated, or why did you withdraw £20 or £50 from your cash point and what did you spend it on? That is completely unrelated. That is also private data. Now, universal credit, and this is fundamentally very important if you are on universal credit and you are being asked for these bank statements. Universal credit is calculated and verified, and you remain eligible for it on a month-by-month basis. Okay? This is known as your assessment period. If you've been on universal credit, they will always refer to your assessment period. And that is very, very important. You could be assessed for universal credit like this month and not have eligibility for it. The next month you could do. Now, this is actually defined by sections 21 and 24 of the Universal Credit Act. Or let me put it another way, you're entitled to universal credit. Any subsequent review, if we're going to be talking about reviews, should only then be relevant to that month in question, unless you are under a fraud investigation. And if you are under a fraud investigation, they do have to inform you by law. They have to tell you as well the date the investigation started and how long they consider that it's going to, go on for, or how, what time or what date they're going to give you a response. And that can change, obviously, depending on the type of investigation and how, in depth it is or how serious it is, etc., based on the data that they have received or they have access to. So why in the world you are being asked, some of you, for 5 months and 9 years bank statements, I just do not know. And again, the letter will point this out. And then we will move on to, obviously, data protection and privacy. Now, whilst DWP do have the right to request certain documents, Article 5 of the UK GDPR Act states that organisations, in particular ones like DWP, must comply with data minimisation principles. This is really important. So collecting only data that is necessary for the stated purpose. So you could argue, well, a universal credit is assessed on a month-by-month basis. Here is my bank statement. That's all my income coming in. You don't have a right to see what I'm spending my money on. I've complied. But obviously, if you put it in that way, they're not going to like it. So the letter is obviously going to tell you or help you word it in a better way, because they don't like people knowing their rights, DWP. In fact, they hate people knowing their rights and questioning them, because they, consider that it's questioning their integrity. Well, one might argue that they're taking advantage of people's goodwill when they are blanketly putting every single person on universal credit under a case review. And it is my opinion that they're doing this because of the fraud, error and recovery bill. But that is a bill, and they cannot mandate that by law. They cannot do that because it has not become a law. But it seems like they're doing a type of system cleansing process to prepare for it. But fact is fact, fiction is fiction. It's not yet law. So when you're arguing the point of data protection and privacy with a DWP here, there are two things that you should be referring to: specific statutory power relied upon for demanding unredacted bank statements, and obviously the purpose and time period for which those statements are required, and confirm whether they will accept partially redacted bank statements, clearly displaying all income, capital and balances relevant to universal credit entitlement. Now, the reason why you need to put that in writing is that they will then have to reply and say, no, we won't accept it. And then you're going to have a legal document, a statement, that you can then take legal action upon if you wish to. You will notice from some of the comments when some of you brave people have, asserted your rights, people have just, like DWP, have literally just hung up on claimants. In fact, let me show you. So this is from the lovely Lee. I had the call from DWP after asking the security questions to verify my identity. She then informed me that they needed a copy of my ID and bank statement for the review to ensure I was being paid the right amount. I can tell you that is not true. They do not need your bank statements to see whether or not you are being paid the right amount. Ridiculous. I asked why the ID, as I have been on universal credit for over 5 years, and was told it was for the review. I pointed out that she'd already established my identity by asking me the security questions. Go you, Lee. Exactly. She repeated that it was for the review. Again, they've obviously been told what they've got to do. We did this ping pong for a bit and then she hung up on me. She was obviously just a call centre person working from a script and with no idea of what or why she was asking for this information. I'm a bit gutted as I didn't even get to mention Section 8 of the DPA. Leah, we need to give Lee the biggest shout out ever. We need more people being like Lee. Again, Lee knows his rights and there's nothing they can do. Now, very briefly, I just want to mention something about disability. If you are a disabled claimant, or you have a long-term health condition, if you're on LCWRA or LCW, you can request, and I would even go as far to say that anybody actually could do this, but in particular if you are disabled. And the reason why I'm saying that is because disabled people, obviously by virtue of the fact that they are disabled, are more likely to be more vulnerable, particularly in terms of finance. So you can request, and I've put it here as a paragraph under equality and fair process, that no adverse action be taken until you have received a written response to your questions over compliance and this letter of complaint. And in brackets it clearly puts suspension, termination of my claim or any other punitive action, sanctions, etc. So what you're doing here is you're clearly asking by this letter for DWP to explain exactly what they're doing. You're calling out concerns over acts and law, over what you think they should and should not be doing, and you're asking for them to respond in the same way that you would do if you were dealing with them in court. So under section 149 of the Equality Act of 2010, DWP has a public sector equality duty to ensure that its processes do not impose disproportionate disadvantage or procedural barriers of disabled claimants. I know this very well because I had to do an entire nationwide sweep of universal credit claims, picking out errors of work coaches and team leaders, in particular on claims for disabled people. It's surprising how many people work for that organisation that just do not know the policies by which they're meant to be applying certain methods and techniques. And then obviously anybody can report DWP to the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office in London, which you may want to consider doing if you have concerns over privacy and information gathering or information harvesting instead of data minimization, which is what the GDPR Act is meant to be, partly all about. And the reason for that is because it minimizes potential data breaches. If you're uploading all of your banking information, I'm just quite frankly surprised that this is being requested in the first place, because I don't really think anything should be uploaded. And the other point here is the independent case examiner or relevant tribunal for maladministration and breach of statutory duty. As I said, this is quite a serious, heavy-hearted complaint letter. But if you are not wanting to comply with what they are requesting, and you're concerned over these reviews, and I would be concerned over these reviews as well because they're being blanketly applied, like I said, then I think it's definitely a cause for reason and concern. And maybe the more people that write a letter of complaint, then maybe this whole process will be looked into and will be rectified, because I really don't agree with what's been requested. Now, this letter comes from the letter vault inside justicejournals.com. It is a massive community. We don't just deal really with this sort of thing. We do a lot with PIP tribunals, disability workplace issues, access to work, empowerment, and of course dealing with discrimination. I'm sharing my own access to work templates. Everything is templates I've used myself. There is also the software that I created, Justice Writer Pro, which does help write a lot of letters for you and help you work certain things out in a structured manner if you do not know how to do them yourself. It works out about £1.80 a week. And there are all sorts of wonderful things in there. There are lots of videos. There is the PIP plan. There is monthly coaching where people from the Justice Journals community come together, talk about things that are concerning them, or ask me questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will go away and find it from one of my collaborators, which can be anyone from lawyers and other legal entities to healthcare specialists. Again, it is not legal advice. It is really where I've been journaling, quite frankly, the appalling behaviours of organisations like DWP, and creating resources which, as I said before, I've had to use myself as a former DWP employee when they failed to follow their own processes for disabled employees. So that is what I'm sharing, and it's been, as I've said before, very successful. People have got PIP from the resources, people have got access to work payments, and people have got all sorts of other things that they were formally denied by DWP. So there we go. Anyway, guys, love to you all. Do things in the right way. Thank you for your support. Please share out the channel and the videos, and let's try and make this a better place for everybody. Have a great day. Goodbye.